Hi, you guys. I'm just getting set up here, and I thought you could do the same. And just while I'm getting organized, I'll talk to you about today's sketch, and you can also mess around and find a couple of pens and some scrap paper. And by the time I'm organized, maybe you will be too, and we can get going. This cute little birdie, I have no idea how to say the name. I'm going to butcher it. It's a spotted Pardalotes. How about that for not knowing how to say it? Anyway, it's such a sweet little photo, and I thought we could maybe do it justice today with our sketching. I know that we have done other sketches in this kind of format where the body is facing one direction and the head is turned toward us. And I don't remember like the order of our sketches. I didn't bother looking it up, but I know the Silvereye was a little bit like this. The goldfinch, where his back is to us and his head is turned, is a little bit like this. The English robin, very much. So you're probably thinking, like, why the heck are we doing something that is a similar pose? And I thought, hopefully what you're doing with your sketches is you are putting them up on your wall and putting the date on them. So then when we come to a sketch that's similar in pose to something that we've done in the past, you can see whether or not you've improved. I don't know. Oh, what the heck. Okay, I'm shutting up, and we're gonna start working. I want you to have 2 pens today. I want you to have a pen that drops quite a bit of ink with very little pressure, and we're going to use this to do our black on the bird, and then another pen that we can just use for our lighter work that drops less ink, that you have better control over. You need your scrap piece of paper, and my 2 pens are the same brand, so I've left the lid on the one that is lighter so that I don't grab the wrong one by mistake. So what's the objective today? What I'd like us to end up with is a sketch where we've captured this degree of curiosity with him reaching forward with his head to have a look at what's going on in your house. That's what I want. For me, it'll be like he's keeping an eye on what's going on in the kitchen. So to do that, even though we're just using one color, we're going to be doing our shading, and we're going to shade his tummy, the light, we're just going to, I don't know. I'm shutting up. I don't know what I'm doing. This channel is all about collaboration. Okay, so for your starting point on your paper, we can start pretty close to the edge because look, the tip of his beak actually reaches past his tail. Okay, and this, paying attention to angles like this, is really also what gives us the twist to the bird. So we want to make sure that we've got his beak out past his tail, just a smidge, and we're going to emphasize his shoulder here and the curve of his chest. So how about we get going? I don't want to do monster bird like I usually do. This little bill has quite a curve to it. So I want to start maybe like a little bit smaller. I always say that and it never happens. And we've got this sharp angle down and a bit of a curve. And we'll go to his forehead. Just pay attention to where you are. Little forehead, little curve for the top of the head. And we'll carry this back to, this is black and the background is black. Sorry about that. And then we've got the curve, it kind of flattens out on the top of his head. And then we're getting around to these feathers here on the back of his head are distorted because of the reach of the angle that we've got here. And we're just going to carry this down in a nice angle with all his bumpy feathers. And then we have the feathers of his shoulder sticking out. And the shoulder feathers are sort of begin right at the bottom. Oh, that turned out nicely. Look, it's almost like the bottom of his bill. And that's where we want to have like his shoulder. So I'm going to stop there. Now, we've got the throat, the curve out for his throat. We're coming down and out a little bit. It's not a straight line. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's just curve that out a little bit and then bring it back in. Okay, let's stop because I don't want to take this down too far. What we're going to do is finish around the top of the bill. See this V here? This V, very slight. We're putting that in because that is the center, that the tip of that V is the center of his face. So when we can see a little bit of the V, that shows that his head is turned toward us. Go around these little tiny details when we understand what we're looking at. This is the kind of little itty bitty stuff that we put into our sketch that relays a lot of information to it, whoever looks at it. This is the yellow, orange, sorry. Okay, so this is the bill, and we can't really see. This is the bottom bill in very heavy shadow, plus it's black. And then the top of the bill is also black, but it's captured, the smooth surface has captured the light, and we've got that reflection there. So what we'll do is we'll just very carefully just shade in a little bit of this, the dark under part of the bill. And maybe a little bit on the top as well, and then a little bit of the gray. Okay, so what I want to do now is place the eye, and I'm not too sure. So why don't we use the white feather markings? We're gonna just very roughly mark in the top part of these feathers, just so that we've got our sort of like border, and then carry that to the back of the head. So don't worry about this. If you don't have enough arc here, we're going to fix that later. Let's do the bottom part of this white border that's going to lead us into the eye. Just don't make a perfect circle, because it's never, it might be a perfect circle in nature, but there's always going to be distortions when the photo is capturing the light. So we have to, we're good at putting distortions in our sketches. Trust me. Anyway, leave some white, these two white dots on the lens where the light is reflected off the curvature. And there is this very faint band of tissue that can be seen around the eye. So try to keep it, maybe go a little bit small first. You can always push the black border out later if you want to, if you think it's necessary. Okay, let's follow this very broken white to feathers to the back, and then underneath the eye we've got this black strip, and we'll use our other pen to drop more ink on this to emphasize the black. This is just more a case of helping us stay oriented in the picture. So just because some of these feathers are solid black, let's just shade in a couple of them. Stay away from the edge of the eyeball because you don't want to bleed in with your shading so you lose the definition of the tissue around the eye. Okay, I think that's good enough for just, I'm not going to get screwed up. Okay, now what? How about we've got this slight bump in his throat, and see where when we're coming down the curve of his throat, we're capturing his back. This is going to be his upper back right here. And it sort of begins almost where his beak, gosh, this is working out well today so far. I'm going to mark it right here and see how it's quite steep with a very slight curve. So don't push it out too much because that's going to end up distorting the angle of his body. Remember this, the beak is kind of our end point for the tip of his tail. And in your sketch, if you feel like you've screwed up these angles, see how I'm pulling mine in and it's not like that, it's out a little bit, but I don't want to go out too far. So you can put like a little bit of a curve into it, and he has this kind of a short stubby tail, but I don't want to commit to putting in these tail feathers right now because we should work on doing his chest and his tummy and his bum, and then we'll have things lined up. See how his body is actually lower than the tip of his tail. And that also is because of the angle of his perch. How about I just shut up? Let's go over here to these little feathers that are sticking out because of his reach through his head. And we've got his shoulder here. We want to have a nice angle there, showing his shoulder coming into his chest and his tummy. And we want to pull that in. And these feathers, he's twisted so much that these feathers are coming off his tummy. And then we've got like a good angle through between his legs at the bottom of his body. And then we got a foot here that curves, and this is his. Have I made him too short? I don't know. He's such a cute little stubby little birdie that I want to have a cute stubby little sketch. Maybe. Okay, so this line here, if we see where this is almost like his hip comes out, it's underneath his bill. I'm going to put his hip out a little bit more. I can tell right now that I think my sketch isn't going to have the same degree of twist that he's got in the photo. What a surprise. Okay, let's just do the loose feathers under his body and his tummy. And we've got this leg is actually fairly sturdy. He's got sturdy. This one on his back quite a bit. And we got this. I'm doing this one right here. I want to come out. Let's try to get the angle right. Big, thick back toe. And then this is confusing, but this is his front toe up and the claw is circling around. So what we've got is that, and then the toe is like this, and then the large claw coming through. And then his other toe, the middle toe, is coming through like this. Always seems to be the longest one, with a great big pad and the claw curving around. And this right here is the claw for the third toe on the front. Now with the other leg here, we can see more of the texture of the foot. Bring this forward. We'll do this outer toe first, and the shorter claw around. Beside that is the long middle toe. The long claw that is hanging off the little reed, and then we've got our front facing toe toward us. With the shorter claw. We don't see the back toe, so let's put in our branch and we'll run it. This is one, the toe stops here, the branch goes through like this, and underneath this one to the back, and on there like that. So we've got his toes actually wrapped around the breast, and see, if you'd like, try to, this right here, I know it's hard to tell, this is the claw from his back toe. Okay, how are we doing for placement? Let's just try to put in very, very carefully some of these borders for the feathers where they change, just to see if we're totally screwed up with our proportions and our placements. There's lots and lots of like ripples and markings with the gray feathers and the white tips. I don't know how the heel to get this into the picture. Let's leave that and let's kind of mark off his back. Keep this nice and broken here and here. Get into the curve of his hip. I curve out and then in, and lots of loose feathers under his tummy and under his bum. Now, what are we going to do about the back? How about we put in some of these orange, lighter orange feathers on the top of the back. I don't get too screwed up. And then we've got black, and then I'm actually going to use circles for these white tips. We've got the folded wing feathers that are showing dark, the edges, probably some shadow too, tips of the wings, the flight feathers I mean, and then down. Now, see, we want to make sure his tail is kind of not as low down as his bum. Let's put these borders in here as well. This is going to be shaded. Get some shading here and just different. This white is also in shadow. It's underneath his tail. I have this a little bit darker under here. Okay. How about we just start working them up now? So choose a spot where you want to, first of all, go with your lighter shades. Always do the lighter shades first, even though it's so tempting just to grab the other pen and say, oh, let's take a break and do some of the dark stuff. I don't want us to get into trouble by laying down too much of the dark before we, and then we have to orient the rest of our tones with what we've already done. How about we circle off these distinct tips? There's only like 5 here, and I've got like 6 or 7 in my picture. Well, okay. Let's bring down some of the lighter color. And then we've got, I guess it's pretty safe to go ahead and do these black, this black section on his back. We'll stay away from our white feather tips. I mean, he's called a spotted Pardalotes for a reason. Let's practice having our broken line with these wispy feathers coming through here. I'm trying to leave some of the light parts and just putting some black behind it. And we've got a little bit of gray. All we're doing is just trying not to like shade in everything. Okay. Do this little darker patch at the top of his back. All right. How about this collar? This here on the one shoulder that's kind of squished toward us is the same of these markings here. So how about we just kind of like put in a couple of these borders. We're sort of like emphasizing the darker tips of these feathers. We can just get in a couple of these bands so that we can distinguish. I guess let's do this one in here. Okay, and why don't we use the same technique with your pen and get these. So what we're shading is this band of kind of like these features of the feathers that are like a little more grayish, and then they've got the white tips, right? just these characteristics that kind of like flow through, and then we'll just have the little fluffy feathers coming out here, and then... Now, what are we going to do about all this? So what we want to look at is the dark. Our eye is drawn to the light, but we're not allowed to look at the light. We're going to look at the dark. So what we're going to add is just these dark markings sporadically to show where the higher up on the shaft of the feather is dark, and it's got the white tips. So we don't want to make ourselves mental by, though I am kind of like a, in previous years I would have counted each one and measured its location and put it in specifically. But if we just use our pen to mark these black shafts of the feathers, and leave our tips white, just change the density so we know that where there's like a lot of them, and then they just kind of like spread out a little bit more. It gives an impression of what's going on with the markings. I think I said in one of my other videos that we will never do a loon, ever. And the 4,000 little white dots along the back, not gonna happen. So let's just, so yeah, we can suffer a little bit and do these little white markings here. So same, pay attention to the black, because the black is what we can add. We can't add the white to our picture. So we want to train our eye to focus on the black and what we can add as detail to him. See how this white stripe has quite a bit of gray, and the underlying black feathers that have come through it. So let's just very carefully screw it up a little bit and add some more black at the end of that. Oh, I hope my hand isn't covering the photo where you're working. Now, check to see if you're happy with this curvature and size, because now's the time to change it. If you want to bump it up a little bit more, if you think there should be more curve, or if you kind of like this size. I just want to leave this reflection here, and there's quite a distinct white patch here and underneath. I don't know, I'm undecided. Okay, I hate lines, but you know what? The fastest way to put in these spots on the crown is to actually very lightly put in these white dots so that you're sure to stay away from them when you do your shading. And I know we'll probably go back over this with our other pen that drops more color, but I don't want to do that right now. Let's just very carefully put in and keep our pen away from our white spots. We can increase all the black, or emphasize, sorry, the black, and see how this, try to keep this angle. Don't bring it down too much, because it really is a very kind of like distinct black cap that he's got. Yeah, I don't want to bring that down anymore. Where's, okay, this is the black here. This is white. When we just do this, we can kind of keep ourselves oriented around the markings. And when we switch pens to drop more color and we have a larger contrast between what we're shading and what we want to be black, it'll look better. That's a promise. Okay. It's just, it sucks a little bit because I did want him to have more of a reach. Okay, anyway. Let's just get a little bit of texture and some shading under his throat as these feathers come down. The light is on this side. It's like, and then we just want to have these feathers come down, and then under his throat, there's probably pigment as well as shading there, and then through to his chest, and then the feathers kind of curl around on his tummy. I'll bring these down. And we want to have a little bit more shading underneath. And we're going to stay, this is capturing the light here, the curve there, so we want to make sure we don't get too carried away with this. God, he's a fuzzy little birdie. And the light's going through these loose feathers here. Shading his tummy a little bit more and the curvature of his chest. And then these feathers on the outside are in the most shadow, so I have to do that and then shade those, and then let's just run our pen carefully through this patch. Feathers here. Okay. Top of the leg is darker because and all the little bumps and whatnot with the texture in the tissue, and the shading where his foot is against the branch. foot is primarily in shadow. It has kind of interesting orangey feet, it looks like. And then there's texture on the top of this back toe, plus it's in shadow. A little time consuming when we're using a pen that doesn't drop too much ink at a time. But that's okay. Today's objective is we want to get, we wanted to get that twist primarily. Oh, sorry, I'm just screwing this up. This is the toe from the back. This is the toe from the front. Not paying attention. Okay. Let's just shade our branch a little bit, give it some texture too. Don't want to ignore our environment, background, whatever you want to call it, where we've got our little birdie positioned. In general, you want to have the sides of the branch shaded a little bit more than the center, just to show a little bit of curvature and stuff. You can run your pen through to give it some texture. And then in general, the branch would be a little bit darker where he's perched, because his body's casting a shadow. And then in general, there would be more shading where the curvature of the toes is casting shadow on the branch itself. For any of your more detailed work, you always want to make sure you pay just as much attention to the background as you do to the subject. Okay. Well, he's not bad. I think I say that all the time, though. Okay, how about we switch pens? Because I kind of want to make more contrast. Let's go back to working with our pen that drops a lot of ink. And how about we just focus on bumping up some of the details on bumping up some of the contrasts. We can see where the black is. Don't go to town and actually run over the some of the lighter shading that we've done. It's so tempting just to start and not stop. Pull down some of these borders where the feathers are casting a shadow on the feather underneath. That's why we've got these black lines coming down. And then leave alone the gray. Let's just try to increase some of the contrast here. And we'll go back up and do just a little bit on the bill. and that dark underneath. Now we're going to be using our other pen again as well, okay? So I want you to leave a little bit of a lighter glow on the front of his face, and just use your pen to emphasize the dark, because this is like his head curves. So this top part of his head is actually capturing a little bit of, it's reflecting a little bit of light, and this on the side isn't. So we want to have some difference between the front of his face and the side of his head. And we'll use our pen very carefully to not color in our little white spots that we've drawn. Take the black all the way through to the back, but we can be a little bit clever and have some contrast between the top of his head and the curvature of the side of his head. Let's do the eye while we're at it, and just have a little bit more contrast with these feathers close to his eye, and we'll just go over the lens, and how about we just darken a little bit of these markings. It's hard to kind of leave it as a broken lines, you know, but that's really what we want to do. How about we just bring this down a little bit more over the front of his bill. I think anything that you do is going to be great, you know, like as long as you're just adding contrast and there's more. Let's put some of the black through here as well. We're paying attention to detail. We're just trying to make sure we've got some good contrast in our shades. And I think that's kind of, let's do his toes, because they really do and this toe comes up, and then down is kind of like, sure looks uncomfortable to me, the way it's squished up against the branch. And then this toe, just going to change these colors a little bit. This one's nice and black. It's true they are catching a little bit of the light, and remember this one's short. They really kind of bump into each other, these two. We'll do that one short and then the other one coming around. But with our darker pen, we can sort of emphasize the difference there. Now, how about just add a little bit of contrast to the branch itself, so that he doesn't look, there's not too much of a stark, you know, jump, I think, between the color of his nails and stuff. Okay, I think this pen is a little bit dangerous. Let's go back to using our... And we'll just add a little bit of shading under his throat. And these feathers kind of like come down. We don't want to do too much here because we still want to make sure we've got our contrast. And there is a difference between the throat, the bib and the throat, and then where it goes into his chest. His shade his tummy again. And just try to show a little bit where the feathers are loose. We're just paying attention to how the body curves, the angle that he's at, the way the feathers are lying. We're going to stay away from this a little bit to really have some contrast. This is difficult to shade because there's the shadow and there's the orange and then the tips of his tail feathers are white. But we can kind of get the curve of his hip in here. I think I want to shade his legs a little bit more. Not too much. There's no need to rush. We're not doing anything else today. I should have left spaces on his leg to show where the feathers are coming across it. And then how about we just add some, like texture to his toes. All little bumps and lines. I'm not delaying, I'm thinking while I'm shading in the branch. Let's look at this line here, this border of feathers between the throat and the cheek. So if you don't like this curve here, you can do something about it. And I think I will. I want to pull this down a little bit more. Just to kind of like break this up a little bit and show better where there's that distinction. Maybe we should. Oh, darn. This kind of goes close to the edge. Okay, are there any other areas where you feel like you've got to clean them up a little bit? You can very carefully put in some markings around the eye, as long as you protect the white space and don't get too carried away. And so it's so confusing, all these little feathers on his cheek and stuff. I mean, they do have a pattern, so it's more a case of how do we just do a little bit of work with our pen to give the impression of the pattern. I think I want to add like just more. I didn't do a good job adding like curves to my little squiggles. And then let's just do a better job blending in from our heavy pen to our lighter pen, so that it doesn't look like he's wearing a swimming cap. So we've got our darker black, and then we just try to have not too much shading on the top of his head, so that we do have a contrast. See, the white spots are so distinct, and I've kind of lost that. So it's just use your pen and clean up the borders a little bit. No excuse not to. I should have made my spots larger and then toned them down a little bit, but it's too late now. Okay, are you happy with his back? Pull this through a little bit. Add some of the gray. There's white tips to some of the feathers. Okay, check your angle, because I don't have him twisted as much. If I take this down, well, it's still kind of like, it's not too bad. Did you finish shading in the bill? Do the little brown where the nostril is. Let's have some. I think as long as there's a bit of variety with the shading that you've done on his bill, that's pretty good. So where the light is reflecting off and There's pigment changes and stuff too. Okay, so what do you want to, okay, it's never too late to fix stuff. So what I want to do, see, we've got the top of the head, and then this is sort of like getting into the back of his head and stuff. Mine doesn't go out far enough, so I'm just gonna add a few. I'm just gonna use my pen and very carefully take out some of these black, just add a couple more black tips of feathers to change this angle a little bit before we go into the neck. So and even this maybe a little bit more here too. I don't want to, obviously I don't want to get myself in trouble. It's adding a little bit to his head right here. I'll take that out. Okay. Our little bird from New Zealand. Are you guys happy with your work? Is it good enough to make the wall? I can tell I'm getting into the fussing stage. But what the objective today was to get the angle, which is kind of okay. See if we've improved any from our previous sketches. But you know, like I just want to fuss a little bit more because, as you know, the thumbnail that I choose for the video has to be the way the sketch is finished. I can't cheat. You have no idea how badly I want to most of the time. It's, oh, if I could just work a little bit more on the picture before I take the thumbnail and upload the video. But then that's too misleading. So I can't do it. And I don't. So I just want to make sure I'm super, well, not super happy, but kind of like happy with the way he looks before I say goodbye to you guys. I don't have any second chances once I stop the recording. You know what? I think he's good enough. I think he's kind of cute. So there. Okay, my peeps. As always, thank you for your company. I'd be so lonely just sketching on my own. So I'm really grateful. I'm just adding this gray. Go get your coffee. Say goodbye. Enjoy your day. And I'll see you next time. I don't want to, yeah, I'm just going to leave this the way he is. It's our little spot. I wish, you know what? If you guys know how to pronounce that word for his name, please let me know. And when are you going to start showing me your work? Please. Email me, put it on Facebook so I can see what you're up to. I'd love that. A lot. so that I actually feel like I'm, you know, well, it's not about me. Shut up. I don't care about what I feel like. But I would just love to see some of the stuff that you're doing. That would warm my heart. Okay. Thanks so much for your company, you guys. We'll see you next time.